such a reason. And just remember this: anyone who would take the life of his own child is more than willing to take the life of your child for his cause. And that's why we must stand for life and stand against those who have a passion for death. Believes that we ought to have a human life amendment to the Constitution. I not only believe we should have one, I pledge to you I will lead to make sure that we do in the nation what we did in my state, and that's amend our Constitution so that we do protect human life for the future of our children and our grandchildren. That is an obligation we have.
Yeah.
People have asked me sometimes what it's been like running for president. And I tell them that one of the things that's happened for me is a renewed sense of appreciation for how great this country really is. I've always believed that the greatness of America was never in its government, it was in its ordinary people who, when called upon, were willing to do extraordinary things and have done so. Greatness throughout our history has always been by people who gave of themselves and sacrificed for their own comfort and convenience for others. Jesus said it this way, that greater love has no man than this, than a man would lay down his life for his friends. The reason this country has survived and thrived is because people throughout every generation have been willing to lay down their own lives for the benefit of another, be it their children. Run for political office. Greatest American heroes are the ones who never get their names or faces in the newspaper. They don't make the lead story on the 6 o'clock news. They're the people who put on the uniform of this country, salute its flag, and go to places halfway around.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah. Have more earned our respect and our moral obligation to keep the promises we've made to them. And one of the things that has really been disheartening to me is that while these are our veterans who have kept their promise to the United States and have served their country and have done their duty and have done it with honor, often when they come home, we ask them to stand in line for the very medical and other benefits that we promised they would have when they came home. Ladies and gentlemen, when I'm president, I want to pass the Veterans Bill of Rights that says that the first fruits of the federal treasury don't go to people who have not served their country. It'll go to those who have had that uniform, who have served their country. Everybody else will wait in line until they get what we owe them. We need a military that is the strongest, most capable, most prepared, best staffed, best trained, best equipped that's ever existed on the earth, with the hope that it will be so overwhelmingly powerful that nobody on this earth wants to engage them in a conflict, because they'll know that if they do, we will win, they will lose. And we won't allow the politicians to interfere and interrupt with the battlefield decisions that need to be made by people who have the lives of American citizens in their hands. We will allow those commanders to make those decisions and not be made by politicians who aren't getting shot. Yeah!
Greatness in this country comes because people have been willing to make the sacrifices for us. My parents were a part of what's often called the greatest generation. You know, they deserve that title. My parents, like many of your parents, came through the Great Depression and then a world war. Often their hopes for education and their own comforts were inconvenienced and interrupted through things they couldn't affect or change. My dad was one of those old-fashioned kind of Americans. I tell people he was the ultimate patriot. Let me explain patriotism my dad's way. He laid on the stripes, I saw stars. Patriotism. Some of you grew up like that too. You know, my dad wasn't a disciplinarian because he was mad at me. He was a disciplinarian because he wanted me not to ruin the chances that I had, because he knew that in the United States, no matter where I started, I didn't have to stay there. A lot of places on earth, wherever, whatever neighborhood, whatever job, whatever kind of station in life I started with, that's where I'd be for the rest of time. There was no way out. And to this day, there are a lot of people who will never get but a few miles from where they're born. Not so in the United States. We have opportunities that are amazing. Because in this country, there's that wonderful gift called freedom. My father was a fireman in the city of Hope, Arkansas. On his days off, he worked as a mechanic, building car generators when cars had those things. He was a hard-working guy, heavy lifting. Never finished high school. No male in my family lineage upstream from me had ever finished high school, ever. I was the first. My dad wanted me to do more than just go to high school. He wanted me to go to college. He knew I'd have to work and pay my way through. But he always insisted that I would make good grades so I'd be able to go to college and get more of an education than him. He knew how hard he worked. He knew what the Depression was like. He knew what it was like to be just one paycheck away from not being able to pay the rent on the little rent house on 2nd Street in Hope, Arkansas, where I lived as a kid. My mother was the oldest of 7 kids. Like my dad, went through the Depression. Saw what happened in the World War. A lot of sacrifices because of being one of 7 kids. As a little girl, grew up in a house, no electricity, no running water, outdoor toilets, dirt floors. That's hardship. Some of your parents and grandparents lived that tough too. They wanted my sister and me to have a better life than that. I tell people, my dad was one of those guys who worked with his hands. The only soap we ever had in our house was lava soap. He never quite got all the grime and grit of the day off his hands, but he tried with lava. Because it was the only soap we had when I was a kid, I was in college before I found out it isn't supposed to hurt when you take a shower. Today, people pay really good money to have an exfoliation. Valentine's is coming up pretty soon, guys. Give your wife a bar of lava. It'll exfoliate right quick. I don't appreciate it that much, but boy, it's cheap, I'll tell you that. But my parents didn't live so that they could indulge themselves with things. They lived so that their kids would have a better life. And I'll tell you, I look back and I realize every single year, even though my parents have both been gone for quite a while, I begin to think more and more about what they did so they could put me on their shoulders and that I could live a life unlike they could have ever dreamed. When I was 8 years old, my dad took me to hear a speech with the governor of Arkansas. He was coming to Hope, where we lived in the corner of the state. Like you guys live in the corner of the state, sometimes you wonder, does the state government know you exist down here?
Amen.
I live in the southwest corner of Missouri. I live in the southwest corner of Arkansas. Governors never came down to where we were. And I remember he said, now son, I'm going to take you down. The governor's going to dedicate a lake, make a speech, and you're going to hear it because you may live your whole life and you may never meet a governor in person. Little did he know that his son would become the 44th governor of the state of Arkansas. And I'm counting on you and your friends and your relatives, people you work with and your neighbors. I'm counting on you to get folks out between now and Tuesday to vote. And to vote for me. Because I think you want someone who shares the values of people in Missouri. And I think it's pretty obvious that a person who's governed a state next to you understands your life, what matters to Missouri people a whole lot more than a senator from Arizona or a governor from Massachusetts who served one term. You do the math and figure it out. Folks out there saying, oh, if you vote for Huckabee, that's really a vote for John McCain. Let me explain this to you. If you vote for me, it is a vote for me.
Amen.
You don't vote for somebody who's confused about where he stands on life and marriage and the Second Amendment and the Bush tax cuts and immigration and where he stands